Hey, welcome everybody to this week's Lock and Load chat. Got a bunch of stuff to talk about, and I did want to talk a little bit about the movie I saw recently. It's kind of like, uh, hang on a sec. I'm getting an echo.
Is it from me?
No, it was me. I had to turn off my I'm monitoring the external YouTube, so that never works out well when I start a chat. Anyway, so this movie is at the intersection of eternity and time. It's the first one was Meet Joe Black. Well, the first one was in 1934 called Death Takes a Holiday, and one of the there's more than one redo of this, and the more recent one starred Brad Pitt as Death and Anthony Hopkins as a rich CEO slash socialite, and basically, I think the whole concept of this particular chat is that if you're going to fight to be a survivalist and you're going to fight to live, then you ought to at least contemplate that we're all mortal and we're all going to die. So, because, well, I'll get into it. Basically, Death he's tired of everybody being afraid of him all the time. He can't get near anybody without them shriveling up and, into a ball of fear. And, so in this movie, it's a romantic comedy in that Brad Pitt first meets his character before this is a person that is before he meets Death. Death takes over his body, but before that, he just meets a girl at a coffee shop who happens to be a doctor, and they have a conversation. And they like each other, and then they go their separate ways after they have their coffee. And then Brad Pitt gets hit by a car, and Death takes over his body. And Anthony Hopkins is the CEO and the father of the girl that he meets. And this is very similar to the original in 1934 because it's basically the same plot. And it's just a little updated and different actors. And so, Brad Pitt, there's a voice. Anthony Hopkins' character is having dinner at his house with his family, and all of a sudden, he hears that there's somebody at his front door in his head, and he sends this household staff, the maid or whatever, to go, see who's at the front door and have him invite him in and tell him to wait in the foyer until he can get there. So he comes, and he doesn't know who it is. It's just like, well, who are you? And it's Death, and so he basically he says Death makes a deal with Anthony Hopkins, the socialite. He says, well, I like to take a vacation for like 3 days, and I'd like you to show me around, because Death has never been mortal or human, and he just he just shows up and does his job infinite times infinity every day. And so he never gets to really know anybody. He doesn't have any friends because everyone is just petrified the moment he shows up. So he wants Anthony Hopkins to just show him around and what it's like to be human. And so it's a very interesting story, and it's Death and the daughter kind of fall in love, and Anthony Hopkins is character is upset because his daughter has fallen in love with Death. So, but it's there's some really good quotes, but it wasn't at all like my experience, in my close call with open heart surgery. For me, it was different, but and just some of the people that I met in the emergency room. There was one scene in the movie that I thought was interesting when he, because he's romantically interested in Anthony Hopkins' daughter, who is a doctor. He goes to visit her at the hospital, to talk to her. And there's happens that somebody wheels in their mother on an old Jamaican lady, elderly Jamaican lady in a wheelchair, and in the hospital, the elderly Jamaican lady instantly recognizes that he's not a human, that he is really deaf, and she's afraid because she thinks that's it. He's come for me, and he says, "No, I haven't come for you." And then she says, "Well, why not?" And then she tells him about how painful it is. And I was in the emergency room one time, and there was a lady just like her. She had cancer and kidney dialysis, and she was really in pain. And it doesn't go away. It wasn't just she's always that way. And and the hospital staff was trying to help her, but there's really not much they can do to ease the pain, and so where's the quote that I really like to let me punch at my quote so I don't mess it up. She says, he says so the name of this character, Meet Joe Black, is he has to give a name to everybody that he meets. So first they said, okay, your name is Joe, and then he needs a last name, so he's Black because he's deaf. So it's okay, Joe Black. So he meets this Jamaican woman in the hospital, and so he talks to her in kind of a Jamaican Creole accent, which is, I guess they were trying to. So he's trying to make her feel comfortable by talking to her in, I guess, her accent or something. And he says, "Don't be feisty, sister." And the Jamaican woman says, "I'm not feisty, mister. You come from me. That's good news." And Joe Black says, "Can do no right by people. I come take you, you want to stay. I leave you stay, you want to go." And so sometimes the pain is just, death is just really quick, and the pain ends, and so death, it can be kind of kinder than life sometimes, and that was kind of the point that, she wanted to, she would be happy if death came and took her, because the pain is just that bad and it doesn't ever stop, and there's nothing that the doctors can do, even though they're trying. So anyway, it was just, in my particular encounter was not at all like that. It wasn't Brad Pitt was not deaf. And, with me, it was just like not in a movie. There wasn't any romantic comedy or anything. It was just, a guy in a black cloak and I couldn't see his face. It was just darkness. And, he looked at me, and his right hand motioned for me to come with him, and I just wasn't ready to go. And that's all there was to it. And then when he saw I wasn't ready to go, he turned and walked away. That's what it was like for me. But I'm not afraid of him anymore. So, I just don't think that, because if you're afraid, it's going to make you, and you want to fight for life, then fear will just make you make mistakes and make you more likely to die. So I think that every survivalist prepper person ought to just deal with, the fact that, if death is going to come and take you to whatever lies beyond, and I don't know, I never died, so I don't know what's on the other side, guys. Sorry. I know what it says in the Old Testament, the Garden of Eden, different levels and all that. That's the Jewish version, but, everybody has what their beliefs are. But all I know is what I saw, and the movie deals with it in a very fun way. So I would recommend, it's like, $2 or $3 on the internet if you want to see the original with Frederick Marsh, who is very good as Death. It's one thing that when I was in the rehab hospital, it wouldn't be like this at Queens, but in the rehab hospital, which is like, I spent a week at Queens, where I had my surgery, and then I spent 2 weeks at the rehab hospital Pacific. And it was different because, it was cold, because they keep it cold so staph infections can't grow, bacteria can't grow, people don't get sick, but it was freezing. But the thing was, occasionally there would be like a code 2 or a code pink or whatever it was, when all the doctors and nurses would, like, if someone was in, having a serious problem, a life-threatening, like a code blue, I guess is the popular term, and they say code blue or whatever it was in room, 345, and then the entire staff would just disappear. I mean, the nurses, everybody. You couldn't get a warm blanket, you couldn't get a cup of water, you couldn't get anything. But that was Rehab Hospital Pacific is it's a lot smaller than the actual Queens Hospital, which is a gigantic hospital. In Queens, it was more like if there was this emergency in the emergency room, they would call, like, Team 2 or Team 4, if they needed more doctors. And there was like thousands of doctors in Queens. So they would never, ever run out of doctors and nurses in Queens because there's just so many of them, so it would, but occasionally, when I was just there doing like cardiac rehab or something, I would hear, team 3 report to the emergency room, and, code blue in the emergency room. So they need more people. And for some reason, cause they get too many patients all at once, or, they need a specialist or whatever. But they had a huge amount of people to call on. But in a smaller hospital, like the Rehab of the Hospital Pacific, which is, I don't know, it's like 7 floors, medium-sized building, and there's like I think there's like 2 doctors, and just, each floor has a few nurses, and a bunch of the rest of them. It's like mostly rehab physical trainers, stuff like that. And so, but everybody would just disappear if there was an emergency, and like the regular patients, everything else just gets put, everything that, if you need help, just forget it. It's like the person who really is in threat of losing their life, they all just disappear. And so when I thought it was interesting that when, Brad Pitt is playing death and he walks into a hospital, that the patients who are closer to death you could just recognize him. They could recognize him when as death, and not just as, the romantic lead, and so I just thought it was interesting. And I thought, as a prepper, again, if you, as a survivalist, you need to deal with your own mortality, because it'll make it easier for you to fight to stay alive. You won't make mistakes for being afraid. And, it's just everybody is mortal. Everybody dies, eventually, and so it's just something to think about. And if you want to, for like $2.99, you could download the original version on YouTube if you just search for it. That Death Takes a Holiday, or you could go out and buy the DVD, I guess, of Meet Joe Black, Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt, and it's the same story. Once 1934 was a long time ago, so it's black and white. But the acting of Frederick Marsh as Death is really good, And let's see, what were some other great lines that I liked from Meet Joe Black? Before we get to talking about guns and other stuff, let's see. Well, a lot of there's a lot of things about love in there, because it is a romantic comedy. There's some pretty good funny lines when about death and taxes. You can't avoid them, and telling Death about Death. His character seems to think that's an odd pairing, but in the end, it's pretty funny, because one of the guys that's one of the other characters in the play, who is works at the company that Anthony Hopkins is in charge of. Basically, Death decides to also he's trying to take over the company, and so he kind of pretends to be an IRS agent. And so as an IRS agent, she's trying to intimidate this guy by telling him that he knows the shit that he's been pulling, and the monkey business he's been doing with the books to make some merger go through, and he's kind of talking about death, but he's also, as an IRS agent, the line also works. So I'm just going to read that, and then I guess. Let's see. If I can find it. Oh yeah, there's another good line. You're not deaf. You're just a kid in a suit. That was it. Let's see. Where's this part where he's pretending to be an IRS agent, where Death is pretending to be an IRS agent? Oh yeah, here it is. And he basically tells him he has to, quit trying to take over the company and, resign, and he won't go to jail. And so Brad Pitt character as Death says, should you choose to test my resolve in this matter, you will be facing a finality beyond your comprehension. And you will not be counting days or months or years, but millenniums in a place with no doors. So that's spooky. As far as death and taxes, but anyway. But it's a fun little romantic comedy. The Anthony Hopkins threatens death when he starts dating his daughter. So, it's pretty funny, and it's a good movie, and it's a nice way to just deal with mortality, And again, the whole point is that as a kind of, if you want to be a survivalist, you're preparing whatever challenges you're going to face. There's the possibility that you won't make it. And so. If you can just face that reality before you actually have to face that reality, if you face the concept of that before you face reality, then you won't be making mistakes because you're afraid. At least that's the plan. That's the point of it, of this whole, I don't know if it's a rant or just, my thoughts on the subject. So, but personally, I plan on living at least another 50 years. So, and I plan on shooting a lot of guns in the meantime, and so I'm still catching up on the SHOT Show stuff. There's been a huge amount of knives and gun videos and from SHOT Show that I still haven't seen because my just subscription feed on YouTube is there's a million of them, and definitely wanted to see the Tops knives. I'm not really in the market for just buying, a bunch of new guns. I know the Army got the new P320 that they're from SIG for some reason that I do not understand. There's people have been talking about all kinds of crazy theories on gun channels of why they picked it, but nobody really knows. So, what's been going on with you, guy?
Oh, let's see. I got a new dryer. No.
Oh man.
Hey, you gotta live for the big stuff, man.
It's still cold where you live, and you can't just put stuff out on a clothesline, right?
That's just it. If I lived somewhere else, I could. But lately, it's been warmer than normal. But that means we get fog. So even if we wanted to try to dry clothes in 40 degrees, which isn't going to work. There's so much moisture in the air, it wouldn't work out. But I did not see the movie that you were talking about, so I'm really not much help there. But
that's okay. I hope my talk just kind of helped you think about that. So if you ever do have a survival situation,
Oh, I've contemplated death. I've been through enough emotional pain at different points in my life that I actually felt like I was having a stroke or a heart attack. I was having trouble breathing. I couldn't keep weight on. I was so much emotional pain that it manifested itself in a physical way to the point where it hurt so bad I really didn't want to live anymore, not because I was depressed or something, but just because I couldn't deal with the pain. And I said to myself, is this what happens when you've lived a full life and you're on life support in a hospital and there's nothing else they can do for you? Are you so miserable and in so much pain that you're okay with dying? The thing is, I was young and I had kids depending on me and a wife depending on me. And even if I didn't even care about them, I'm not suicidal. So I wasn't going to check out. It took years, but I got through all the things that were made me feel like I was dying, but it still didn't make me comfortable with the thought of death. And then a few years ago, I got in a motorcycle wreck, and I got knocked unconscious, and I got taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and I'd never done that before. And
me too. That was the first time, congestive heart failure.
Right. Riding in the back of an ambulance is scary. They're strapping you to the board, and they're
monitoring your heart,
or putting the IV in you, and they're asking you questions, and they're trying to get you to talk and say stuff, so that they know if you got brain damage or if you know what's going on or whatever. It's scary. I'm telling you, they're cutting the clothes off of me with scissors, and I'm going, guys, you're scaring the crap out of me. But I took time afterward to think about it, and I said, you know what? Despite years and years of pain and misery that made me understand why somebody would be ready to let go when they're really old and their quality of life is gone, this really makes me understand how you can try to find a way to make yourself comfortable with death, not want death. It's in our human nature to want to survive. And I think that's good because being dead sucks. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't know, if there's any hereafter, I don't know. I only met death. I didn't go, he didn't take me over any bridge to whatever's after that, if anything. So
you had time to think about what was going on before before you came across that choice. What if your roof collapsed on you tonight while you slept and you died instantly? You wouldn't know it. And that's what I came to with the motorcycle wreck was I got knocked unconscious, but I very easily could have got killed too. Either way, I wouldn't have known it. I wouldn't have, the last thing I remember, the last thing I thought and the last thing I saw and all that other stuff. But instead of not coming back, I came to. What if I had been killed? It's over like that. So you can't pick when you're going to go. You shouldn't try to encourage it, but you also can't live life in fear either. And you should just try to make as many preparations as you can for your family, if possible, or whatnot. But in general, you don't know if you're going to be 99 years old and hooked to life support, signing a DNR, or if you're going to get hit by a bus tomorrow. So, when it comes, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, sometimes yes, and sometimes no. There could be something that happens, and there's not one thing you can do. I remember being in the ER and asking, well, am I going to live, or am I going to die, or something like that? And the doctor says, sir, you're going to live, because if we let you die in the ER, we're going to have to fill out so much paperwork. It's reams and reams of forms and reports, and we just don't want to do that. So you're going to live. And so there's a whole team of people making sure I don't die. So somehow him telling me that he didn't want to do the paperwork if I died, it made me feel a lot safer. So.
At least they had a practical reason, but I think I could use that to segue into not knowing when your time's up. There was a guy in San Antonio who he didn't know when his time was up. I guess on Sunday at the Rolling Oaks Mall, two guys tried to rob the K Jewelers, and these guys
were they armed?
Well, that's the thing. I had trouble finding that in the stories. There wasn't as much information as what I was looking for, but they must have been armed because it says 2 weapons were recovered, and they ended up killing somebody. And there was a guy going there with his wife, and they were going there to get their wedding rings cleaned. And when these guys left the jewelry store, he tried to stop them, and one of them killed him. There was another guy there who had a concealed carry permit, and he shot one of the robbers. And here's a statement from the chief of police. What we have here is a robbery gone really, really bad. A second individual who was carrying a concealed weapon then shot and wounded the robber who had killed the person who had intervened. So the guy who was unarmed tried to stop him and was killed by the robbers. The next guy was armed, and he shot and wounded one of the robbers. The other one got away in a stolen car, and they caught him the next day. So the injured robber is in the hospital in critical condition, and I can't get any information on whether or not they're going to file charges against the guy with the concealed carry permit. But both robbery suspects face capital murder charge and 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So they must have had a gun or a knife.
In Texas, capital murder means, death penalty. They will.
Okay.
They execute people. So it's not like in California where you just get put on death row forever and go through endless appeals.
Okay, see, I didn't know that. So they're going to fire up old Sparky or something then.
Could be.
All right. It does say, yeah. Okay. The robbers shot the unarmed man who tried to stop them, and then it was followed up by the armed man stopped one of the criminals by shooting him and wounding him. So, this guy was just there with his wife. They're getting their wedding rings cleaned, and he didn't know that morning when he got up, that it was going to be his day. You never know. You just never know. I'm glad somebody with a concealed carry permit, jumped into action and did what he could. I just hope that they don't charge him, because it just depends on the district attorney and whatnot.
What city was it again? San Antonio?
San Antonio.
Well, maybe Edge can tell us. He lives there. We could check on him. Maybe by Friday he'll know, or you'll know just by looking it up. But you could probably tell us if he shows up today, just if they charge people for that kind of thing in that particular city. Because I know that different cities are, some cities in Texas are more, they're different types of philosophies of the different towns.
Yeah, I think it really depends on who the DA is. I mean, some of these guys, the horror stories I've heard about these guys charging citizens with no criminal record who have a legal firearm and have a legal permit, and they use it to defend their life or other people's lives. The police aren't there yet, and this person's just trying to do the right thing, and then they end up in some sort of hot water, and it sucks. So I'm hoping that the DA doesn't do something just that's ridiculous, but you never know.
Yeah, well, I think that at some point, I don't know. I'm just hoping that the next one of Trump's, we get some more conservative Supreme Court justices on the court, and these these kind of crazy prosecutions don't happen of people that were actually just doing the right thing. I mean, I think another thing that the whole thing about death is, before you ever have to pull the trigger, just consider what it means. And the worst part of death is that for me, it was that I wasn't winning. If I had died on the operating table when I signed the little go ahead for the operation, the form that the doctors give you before they give you open heart surgery, you have to sign up real permission to do it, and it says in there that one possible outcome is death. It's like if I died on the table, I would be unconscious, but and I wouldn't feel any pain, but I wouldn't ever get to talk to my dad again or argue with my dad again. And I'd rather argue with my dad than talk to anybody else. And it's just, it makes you realize, it's the people that you love in your life, and that are really important. So I wouldn't want to die just because. I mean, if I died, my parents would both. One of them might just have a heart attack and die, and then the other one wouldn't want to live anymore. And because it's a lot of times it's like when an older married couple dies, then the spouse dies shortly thereafter too, because they just can't see any reason to want to live anymore. And so if I would have not made it, then quite possibly neither would my parents. So. Or their dog.
Look what happened with Carrie Fisher. Her mom dies the next day.
Yeah, her reason for living was disappeared. And I understand. I met, like, in the recovery, I met a 91-year-old lady, and her husband had passed away, and her kids just wanted to sell the house that she lived in, so they put her in that retirement center that I had to stay in for a couple of months while I was doing cardiac rehab at Queens Hospital, Honolulu. And yeah, her family just, I mean, it's not that they didn't love her or anything, but they just wanted to sell her house, and she literally told me she doesn't feel like she had a reason to live, and it's the only Republican that was in that place. Fucking, there's so many damn Democrats in that place, and so that's why she would always sit at my table and we just talk, and it's nice, the sweetest lady I ever met, and and the only Republican there, so that's why I talked to her a lot. And it was like, it's the only person I could talk to without starting a fight, and with a bunch of 91-year-old people, and it's like, what a sweet lady. I never met anybody quite as classy as her, and it was just terrible. She didn't have a reason to live because her husband had passed on, and her kids had all moved out and grown up, and so she didn't know why she didn't feel like she had any reason to live anymore. So, but I think it's the people in your life that you want to stay alive for, and even if it's just for the arguments with the people that you love, I'd rather have my dad yelling at me about something, as long as I could hear his voice, it'd be okay, and or I could yell at him about something, So, that's in the movie too. It's, there's a lot of good quotes about love that I'm not going to bother with, because this is gun channels and we talk about guns and prepping and stuff and guy stuff. And I'm waiting for my Bowfang radio. It's supposed to be here like on Thursday still. So if anybody has any, I know that some people on YouTube that I've talked to are working on their comms preps or further along than me. I'm going to be going for my technician's license and studying for that in short order, and so I don't know in the Marines what your radio communication procedures were, if you have any tips or anything, but I'm open to any suggestions.
We learned how to use a PRC 77. That's a field radio that you carry in your Alice pack. They'll have like one or two.
How many watts was it?
You guys, I don't remember. It had a whip antenna that you could fold up, right. And the range wasn't very far. The batteries were big and they didn't last long. This is Vietnam era, and we learned how to use it. That's really, we went over to phonetic alphabet and things like that, and you'd be on watch or something, and they'd call from the guard shack, and you're on watch in the middle of the desert. You're not really watching anything. They're just trying to get you trained to do guard duty. And, every hour on the hour they'd call in and you'd say all clear or whatever. And that was really about the most, I'd seen these radios in Vietnam movies and TV shows and stuff. And I finally could use one and go, okay, this thing's big and clunky and kind of outdated. And then when I got out to the fleet, we had the PRC 90s. We called them Prick 90s. And that's a little handheld radio that, PRC, Prick, right? So Prick 90, and it's a handheld radio, and it's what you use if you get shot down. So if you see Gene Hackman in Bat 21, he's got a Prick 90, and those
remember that movie?
Durable. Yes, it's got, it doesn't use AA batteries. It's got its own proprietary type battery, or at least I've never seen that type of battery.
His code was like, the whole thing that he invented about all the different golf courses and stuff. Nobody besides that didn't know the golf courses and play golf could possibly understand. So, yeah,
but it's pretty tough radio. It holds up pretty good, and really that's all it's for is for contacting an overhead aircraft. It's not long range or anything like that. Those are really the only two. I mean, we had Motorola's that we would plug into. They'd have a base, and you'd plug them in there and charge like a modern day radio that you could buy at the hardware store. But back then they were probably really expensive because you weren't buying these radios at the hardware store. And those we'd use on the flight line. We'd go out and you could call back to the maintenance control or whatnot, and ask a question or ask something out.
If the Hawaii Volcano Squad had a air wing, I could call in an airstrike. I don't have an air wing.
You don't necessarily have to have an air wing to call in an airstrike. I mean, you can call in an airstrike, and it's really it's whoever's in the area. If they've got extra ordnance or they're out there on some sort of
but why would they listen to me? I'm just a civilian.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Try to sound real military. Who are you going to call in an airstrike?
I don't know. I don't know if the Russians land or something, or the Chinese invade, but the Iranians or somebody. I don't know. Who would I call an airstrike? All I know from the movies is danger close, let it rain. Which means calling in an airstrike on your own position. So. It's
something else. I mean, I heard about they had some position that was getting overrun, and they called Broken Arrow, and Broken Arrow has two meanings.
Nuclear weapon.
Nuclear weapon got away, yes. Or two, anything in the air with ordnance on it, divert to our position and unload. I don't care if you've got a machine gun or you're carrying 80,000 pounds of bombs. Turn around and head over here. So if they're calling Broken Arrow, it's over. At that point, they're overrun, and it better to saturate the area with ordnance and take your chances than let the enemy take the position. So.
Yeah, well, let's hope I don't get into any Broken Arrow situations.
Yeah.
Because then you will be meeting Mr. Death, but the really thing about it is just dying. You would think in a violence is pretty short amount of pain. I mean, how long would it last for you? If somebody shot you a couple times, you'd be dead pretty quick, and the pain it would hurt like shit probably.
I don't know. It depends on where you got hit. Think about some of the stories you hear about people who got shot in the Old West and they died the next day or a couple days later or a week later.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be like, 5 months worth of pain, and suffering, or a year worth of, terrible pain. It would be quick, everyone would think.
There could be complications. Who knows? But yeah, in general, it's pretty quick. I mean, it's designed to make you bleed out as fast as possible or do even more damage. So, yeah. But I mean, I've heard of people getting stabbed 52 times and living. So.
Yeah. Well, stabbed. Yeah. I think it's just that death. Death can be kinder than sometimes the painful. The painful part. If you want to live, you've got to take the pain and go through it, work through it. That was my big lesson from recovery. Is just waking up with my just my chest was literally sawed in half, and there's just a little wire holding it together. And so, man, doing everything hurt. So if you've really got to want to live to go through that kind of pain. Hurt to breathe, hurt to laugh, hurt to try and fall asleep, it hurt to try and get up. That poor lady with the cancer and the kidney dialysis. I mean, I've taken the bus with some of the picked them up also in the medical bus from the retirement center, and the ladies that were just going for the regular dialysis, it was just like changing a bandage. But this poor lady in the emergency room who had cancer, and she was just in terrible pain, and it was constant, and there's no way to end it for her, short of dying.
No matter how bad you have it, somebody else has it worse.
Yeah, that is true, and it's just so that was the whole thing about death being a lot kinder than life sometimes. But I don't want to get too morbid with this. It's just it's that's what I liked about the movie. It was more a romantic comedy, and you could just get used to the concept of, okay, I'm not going to live forever, and dying. It seemed like pretty natural to me. If it was to happen, yeah, it didn't seem, it was like living and going through that operation and going through all that pain from some miracle operation, a quadruple bypass. I mean, shit, that was unusual. But anyway, you have to want to live. So, don't be afraid of death, because it's living that's painful. Anyway, and there's a lot of people in your life that you love and that love you as white, is your best reason to think of them and fight to live when you're, up against, the wall. So, and then just fight like hell to stay alive, anyway, other than that, geez, I don't know what to talk about next. You had some stuff. We talked about San Antonio. We talked about that shooting. Talked a little bit about SHOT Show.
I've got another news article here. So Betsy DeVos is Trump's pick for the Secretary of Education. Now, the only reason I know who she is the DeVos family owns Amway. They're big in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're
Amway. Okay.
Amway. Okay, that's a Michigan company, and I think it was Dick DeVos ran for governor a few years back or something like that. So that's the only reason I know the DeVos name. I think the Civic Center or something in Grand Rapids is named after DeVos.
So why did he pick her though?
Probably because she donated lots of money to his campaign. I mean, that's what these guys all do. I mean, I heard some guys complaining about Obama was doing last-minute pardons. All presidents do last-minute pardons. So
he did more than usual, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but still, they all do it. Everybody does it. When Trump is done on his last days, he'll be doing it too. So
it was the terrorists from Gitmo that I think annoyed the hell out of everyone. He released them.
That gets under my skin. But I'm just saying, in the same sense that when they're going out, they do a lot of pardons. When they're coming in, they give their biggest donators or their biggest friends or that sort of thing. They give those sorts of people positions. I can't say that she gave them a lot of money, but I know the DeVos family is filthy stinking rich. So
do you have any experience with education at all?
That I don't know, but see, she was getting grilled by Congress, when they're doing the confirmation hearings, and there was a Democrat from Connecticut, Senator Chris Murphy, and he's asking her about what does she think about guns in schools. So her reply is that, there was a school, I think it was in Wyoming or Montana. Where was it here? In Wyoming, where they actually had a gun in or she said something about there's probably a gun in the school to protect from potential grizzlies. So her answer was really, really bad. I mean, yes, if you do live in you have a school in an area where I guess there could be grizzly bears, having a firearm in the school would not be a bad idea. However, if that's going to be your first response when they go, do you think there should be guns in schools? That's really not a strong argument. So she might be on the Second Amendment side, the 2A side, but she doesn't, right out the box, she's not a very, very good spokesperson for Second Amendment rights. So,
yeah, neither is my mom. I mean, she, my mom's voted Republican and all, but she was a principal, and as a principal and as a teacher for all life, she just didn't think that teachers had the training, to safely handle a gun in an emergency. That was her experience.
If a teacher wanted to get the training, I think it should be allowed. Or if they what if they were a 2A person? I mean, I find it hard to believe. I mean, Hickok 45 is a retired school teacher, so it is possible. But
it's possible to be. Yeah, he's a dead shot. I wouldn't want to have him shooting at me.
Most of the teachers I've met have been liberal, left-wing, tree-hugging, everybody needs a safe space and a trophy kind of. Now, I can't speak for all educators. There's got to be some people out there, but there might be some people that are left-wing and they still want the training. There are a lot, listening to gun channels, I'm finding out there's a lot of liberals out there who believe in gun rights. They just don't believe in any of the other conservative stuff, so they always vote liberal and they're voting against the gun rights that they want because it's, I don't know, maybe it's not that important to them or whatnot. So I'm just saying it's possible. It is possible to safely and effectively arm the staff in the school that
if they're
want
open
to be
to
armed.
it. If they're open to it.
And there are precautions you can take. You can put a lock box in the wall in the classroom so the teacher can lock up the gun or whatever if he needs to, because they're like, well, what if the teacher leaves it in their desk or in her purse or something like that? You know, I can understand some of these arguments for and against, but the arguments for are really good. But when you're saying, well, what if they have a bear attack? Now, I will say the article goes on to say that in 2013, there was a school in Montclair, New Jersey that was put on lockdown because they found a black bear. There was a black bear spotted near the school. And the black bear was eventually found in a tree and shot with a tranquilizer gun, okay? And they let it back out into the woods. And then in 2011, a bear was outside a school in Oregon, and it was caught and released back into the wild as well. So I guess there are two incidents here where a bear, what the heck was a bear doing in New Jersey? I don't know. But there was actually a bear that they locked down the schools because of the threat of a bear. So her answer is valid. However, that's just not the first answer I would give.
Maybe he thought he was in Chicago. You've heard of the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, the Chicago Bears. Yeah, that's great. They're coming for you. So I came across this by mistake today, and I found that, and I really don't go looking for this stuff, but somebody at work had shown me something, so I went on a website, and I started finding all kinds of stuff. It's like, oh, okay, this might be interesting. So I don't know. I mean, if she becomes the Secretary of Education and she does stuff to encourage or allow firearms in schools or at some federal level for you know, I mean eventually it's going to be up to the states, but I'm all
How
for
about
it.
just at least security guards? Well, I think the thing is to realize that the teachers are just regular people, and you know, obviously, I mean, if we could get security guards or just have like a school security force, you know, so people, or just something so that people, you know, crazy people wouldn't automatically know that there's never going to be anybody armed at a school. I mean, it shouldn't be a gun-free zone. You know, I mean, that would be a start. You know, but
I've got a child.
There's a lot of things about the education system that need improvement, and not just Second Amendment, but a lot of things.
Right. Well, not just the safety thing. There are other things that need to be improved. But I've got a child in high school, and he's about a quarter mile away from the police department, maybe half mile. I've got another one in elementary school, and he's probably about 3 miles away from the police department.
How close is the nearest donut shop?
Yeah,
I'm not joking.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's really weird. I don't see a lot of police patrol in my township, and there are a lot of cops and a lot of cop cars, and they have an open house every year. You can go see the police department, see all the stuff they got, but I hardly ever see them, which is, in some ways, it's good because I really don't worry about getting a speeding ticket. But it's really bad because I do want them out there. And I mean, for me, I would say I would want a police car there in the parking lot of every school when they let out and when they let in. So every morning at 8 o'clock, there needs to be a car sitting there. And every afternoon at 4 o'clock, there needs to be a car sitting there. And they've got enough officers and they got enough cars that they could literally set at every school.
Hey, let's say hello to Dusty One. Just say hi to him because I saw him come in, and we've been monopolizing the talking. So
I'm still here. And I was just going to add something to what he just said. You know, the few days before Sandy Hook, our Michigan legislature sent a bill to the governor that they'd passed that they was going to allow open carry in our schools. Well, then after Sandy Hook happened, the governor did not have enough guts to sign that bill. But now last February, he did sign a bill that we could open carry in schools now.
No, they got rid of open carry in school. They allow concealed carry.
I think it's the other way around.
No, because there were guys showing up to. There were guys showing up to school open carrying, and they're calling the police on them, and then they come to find out that there's an old law in the books that says you can open carry, and they didn't want that, so they did a change. They kind of swapped it, and they said if you have a concealed carry permit, you can carry into school, but no longer will open carry. The open carry thing was an old law, and not a lot of people knew about it. So They weren't arresting these people. They were calling the cops, and then they're finding out, oh, this is old law in the books.
Hey, speaking of, since I noticed that Dano and G-Webs are out there, and I had this something I wanted to talk to them about, which was the Hawaii Republican Party has been screwed up for years. So I don't know how to, if I could help the Republican Assembly, with any kind of basically the Republican Party is run by Democrats, and this is just like the Hawaii Republican Assembly site, which is only conservatives, and they've got a project called Operation Phoenix. Let me. I don't think I'm not on the right page. Hang on a second. Running a chat with all these things. Turn that screen share off and turn on Operation Phoenix, and they're trying to rebuild the whole Republican Party, and so I'm trying to figure out if there's any way we could help get that, help some social media, send some social media help their way, because it's a big order. Let me try and get the right page screen shared. Sorry. Operation Phoenix. Where is it? Yeah, this one. So reforming the Republican Party of Hawaii. Basically, the Republican Party of Hawaii is like, like Beth Fukumoto. She was just recently at the, Women's March, being cheered by all the Democrats, that George Soros paid for. And so they've got this Operation Phoenix that they're working on, and to try and just get all the rhinos out. And there's just so many of them. It's just not even funny. Supporting the government that listens to the people. Right, here it is. This is the page. So it's something they're working on, to just basically restart the Hawaii Republican Party and get rid of everybody that's in it and start over. Because basically they're just so all rhinos in there, and there's ever since Sam Sloan got lost the election, there really isn't any leader. I mean, the leader of the Hawaii Republican Party is a Democrat. She showed up at the Beth Fukumoto. They actually, at the last Republican convention, they booed her off the stage, and she left crying, literally. And so, but she's like the lead person now, and she was at the Women Against Trump rally yesterday or the day before, whenever they were. I can't even keep track of fucking Madonna and everything, but so this link is Hawaii. This particular link is HawaiiFutureProject.com, and if anybody in Gun Channels has some input on, if they think that social media would be helpful to get, on Gun Channels to help get this out there. Hawaii is kind of, with all the islands, it just seems like, they had a protest against Trump at the state capitol, just I think, Sunday or Saturday, and so I don't know. If you look at the quotes for just how bad the Republican Party is in Hawaii, it is just like fucking god awful. Let me see here. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. This guy is crazy. They had pictures of the. Let's see. Anyway, I got to do something. I'm not sure what it is, but they had the Rhino Attack thing on here that was funny. A bunch of rhinos charging, But it's like, I don't know where to start, because Hawaii is just so screwed up. It's not even believable. The Republican Party is just, basically they sued the Republican Assembly for trashing the Republican Party and using where's this, not this one, where's the one of the rhino? Let's see, hitting rock bottom, corruption alert. Yeah, their 2016 campaign theme in Hawaii is hashtag Never Trump. You know, I mean, they were basically supporting the Democrats. This one, this elephant right here. The Republican Party hired a Democrat union attorney and sued the Republican Assembly for using this elephant. Believe it or not. They lost. Thank goodness. But the leader, it's just, we don't really have a Republican Party. I mean, there's the Republican Assembly, but the Republican Party, if they could just fire everyone and start over, you know, we'd be making a lot of progress, because they've done nothing but lose and support. You know, literally supporting the Democrats is the only way that they can think of to get anything done, and there just aren't any more Republican legislators left. You know, Sam Sloan had been there forever, so it's pretty much, you know, got to do something, and it's going to take a lot of social media to get this ship turned in the right direction. Anyway, I'm willing to listen to any crazy suggestion on that. So maybe on a lobby somewhere, G Webs can give me some ideas, because I'm just tired of looking at, you know, a hopeless situation in the state of Hawaii in the Republican Party. They're not Republicans; they're Democrats. You know, they literally wouldn't support Trump. They would, you know, and they would support their own candidates. And they're literally out there campaigning for the Democrats, protesting. They were out there protesting Trump. The leader, the last person left, Beth Fukumoto, you know, who was booed off the stage at the Republican Party in Hawaii, and driven to tears. I mean, she was out there with the protesters the other day. So, you know, just sometimes you can throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, just fuck it, and we don't care anymore. But, you know, I suppose you have to keep fighting. You know, like from the Terminator, just never stop fighting, right? You know, I mean, but Hawaii is just such a lost cause. You know, nationwide, the Republicans are doing great, but in Hawaii, it's like, where do you even start? You know, so I guess I'm just gonna have to, you know, I had contacted, and you know, with every Republican, the Senate candidate who ran the last time, and the Republican Party never even helped him. You know, it was just I talked to his campaign manager, supported him as much as I could on social media, and you know, they said thank you and all, but it's like nobody even knew who he was. I had to Google his name to find out who the hell was running for the Republican, you know, U.S. Senate seat, and you know, we wind up with Brian Schatz, you know, super left wing, gun grabbing, you know, politician. So anyway, it's something for us to work on. We got time. And let's see what else. So I guess other than waiting for my radio, Section 5C. What's Section 5C?
This is Dusty and I aren't in agreement on the Michigan law, and I don't want to disagree with him, but I was looking it up based on I downloaded the 38-page law when they passed it, where they flip-flopped it, where they said you can no longer open carry in a school, you can conceal carry now. So I was trying to find a section in the Michigan legislature that explains it in a little bit more detail, because when you're looking at the PDF of the 38-page law, it references this 750-237A, and if you go to Section 5C, it says subsection 4 does not apply to any of the following. And under C, it is an individual licensed by the state or another state to carry a concealed weapon. So the way I remember it is that the law was an old law, and most people weren't aware of it, including the schools and law enforcement, and nobody ever checked up on it because people didn't know. It wasn't like common knowledge, and that was that you could open carry in a school. Not that there was a law that says you can open carry, that there was no law that said you couldn't. And people were going to pick up their kids from school or going to parent-teacher conferences or whatever, and they're open carrying, and they're calling the cops, and the cops are looking it up going, oh, we can't do anything. There's no law. And enough people did this, and it made the news enough that they said, okay, look, it's going to be a pain in the butt to get rid of this old law that isn't there. So why don't we do this? Why don't we'll make peace with everybody. What we'll do is we'll let you conceal carry in a school, which we didn't allow before, if you guys give up open carry. And in this 38-page law, they go through all this other crap. I mean, it's a bunch of legalese, and a lot of it had to do with they also tacked into that getting rid of the boards. They had some counties had gun boards you had to go in front of to get approval, and they more or less made it where in the state of Michigan, you just go to the clerk and you file the paperwork and pass the background check and take
a gun board. That sounds like an Obama death panel. A gun board.
Well, no, what is
the only kind of gun board I like is when I go to the gun shop and there's a bunch of guns on the wall that are all pegged to a board. That's my kind of gun board.
Michigan had a county by county discretion on it. So like in my county, you just take the class, get your paperwork, go down to the county clerk, pay your fee, get your picture, turn in your paperwork, do your fingerprints, get the background check, and they mail you your stuff, and you're good to go. In the county next door, you had to get like a doctor's note or something saying you weren't crazy. In Meggy's county, you had to go in front of a gun board and explain good cause to have this thing. So they were trying to do away with the gun board. Some of these counties started dropping the gun board. So in this law where they said, okay, no more open carry in schools, but now you can conceal carry if you have a concealed pistol license, we're also going to dissolve the gun boards. As far as I know from reading it, I mean, reading 38 pages of law is I'm no lawyer.
I know.
That's the way I read it. So, and I don't want to argue.
The law that was proposed, but I don't think it ever got signed by our governor.
Okay, now that I can believe. That I can believe. But as far as I know, it passed. As far as I know, it passed. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But
well,
I'm
passing and getting it signed. Well, you guys ought to figure out whether it was signed or not. Do you have a local Michigan Second Amendment group? Page.
Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners.
Do they have a website? Usually they talk about that kind of stuff on there.
Yeah, you know what? That's probably what I should have done. Is I should have just gone.
I mean, it seems to me like why are they trying to stop parents from keep making sure their kids are safe? But
well, here's the way I understand. Bottom line, if you go through all the stuff to get the concealed pistol license. And the law, the way they had it written was, you can have it on you in your car when you drop off and pick up your son or daughter. You just can't exit the car. You can stay in the car in the parking lot, but you cannot exit the car. You can't go into the school. You can't walk into the parking lot and get them stuff like that. Okay, you're already trusting them to go that far. They went through all this stuff to go ahead and get this permit. Let them carry it in a damn school. That or provide cops. Provide cops around, the schools, at least when they're opening, they're letting in and letting out.
Yeah, like when the drug dealers congregate, when they let out of school. Yeah, I mean, so.
Oh, no, what they did at my son's elementary school was they locked the doors. So they're open for the 20 minutes in the morning where people are dropping off the kids, the bus is dropping off the kids, stuff like that. And then they're locked. And you can't get in unless they buzz you in. And then they do the same thing in the afternoon when they're letting the kids out, and they want the kids to walk home, the kids get picked up by the parents, and the kids getting on the bus. And it's about a 20-minute, and then boom, they're locked. And you need access to get in afterward.
Well, locking the doors, I mean, well, maybe technically, but I mean, schools generally, in my experience, have fences, and kids can hop fences. And so can bad guys.
So I'm telling you, the locked doors don't work worth a crap. You can take a screwdriver and pop the locked door open. You can take the butt of a rifle and smash the big window that's right next to the door and the card reader and go in there. And they put the hinges on backwards in the office. So if you wave and they buzz you into the office, even if you don't want to just take out the people in the office and push the button underneath the counter, you could literally take a screwdriver and pop the hinge off the door because they have it on the inside, not the outside. So what I'm saying is their security isn't effective. But if that's the time where they think anybody could walk in or out of the school without having a badge, without getting buzzed in or whatnot, then why don't you have a cop sitting in the parking lot that whole time? How much is that to ask? But I think that teachers or some of the staff should be allowed to carry, and parents should be able to go in there. If they've gone through their due diligence to get a concealed pistol license, what's the harm?
Well, it's just like my father was an educator all his life. He had been in our school system. He also was a trained Navy officer. So
that's an exception.
Yes.
Most teachers that teach kids are not trained naval officers.
But, so our system had somebody in that school that could very well have offered protection.
Yeah, that should be, there should be some way of getting people that are qualified, that, the right, it's just, when you're dealing with school systems, there's the whole thing with school boards, and it just gets real complicated, because, if the feds take over and say, no gun-free zones, but then it's like, well, now they just took all that power away from the school boards, and federalized everything when they said do that. So I don't know what the right answer is. I haven't given enough thought. I could just only tell you that what, my mother was working in schools the whole time, and then principal, and she just thought that most teachers that she knew in her career would be crappy, emergency responders, I mean, even a crappy emergency responder with a gun is better than no emergency responder at all, and I mean, my dad could shoot great, but he's not an educator, and I could shoot halfway decent, but, I'm not the greatest person with a pistol, I mean, but most teachers, they spend their lives working on how to educate kids, not how to be a, first responder.
Well, and the other thing
I'm just trying to present both sides of view here, so we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I would say is if a teacher had that capability, maybe they're worth more to the school district, and they should have a better salary because of it too. They complain. One of the reasons they don't post officers and stuff at the doors of the school is because they say they can't afford to pay their salaries. So maybe it would be a better option to pay a teacher a little bit extra in order to have that security available.
Yeah, and another reason that if they don't post officers may be that because a lot of the kids, at least in the California LAUSD system, are their parents are legal immigrants, and they might feel intimidated if there was an officer, and not bring their kids to school at all. So I mean,
I don't have a problem with that either, though. So.
Right. Well, the school system does. So, they want everybody to get an education, whether they're legal here illegally or not, So, that's a whole nother issue, but it does kind of tie into the whole gun issue as far as posting, armed officers at the doors. I mean, it would intimidate the parents of illegal aliens to drop their kids off to school, and then, as kids in the schools, sometimes the schools are like, their homes are schools are their sanctuary sometimes compared to their homes, which are, sometimes dealing drugs out of their homes. The parents are on crack. It's all kinds of crazy situations and I know that I, heard all the horror stories that my mom had to deal with. She worked in Barrio Van Nuys, and there's gangs, so their home life, their school is their sanctuary. So they want it to be a certain way, and but it has to be safe too. So yeah, I don't know what the right answer is, but damn, it's one of those problems that there's no simple solutions to. But different states, you don't want to federalize everything, but sometimes, I don't know. Somebody tell me what the answer is.
Hey, Dusty, I went on the Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners website, and I know they're legit because they were the ones that got us concealed pistol licenses back in the day. And they link to the Michigan State Police website, and that says that the old law still stands where you cannot conceal carry in the school, and you can only have it in your vehicle, dropping off or picking up, and you can't exit your vehicle. It links to the Michigan legislature website, the same website that I sent you a link to that says you can conceal carry in school. It's linking to where it says you can't. So I guess you can't, but I thought that
You
law
cannot.
passed.
No,
Okay.
that is. I looked at that too. The original, what you sent me from the Michigan legislator, that is the bill that was on the governor's desk the day that Sandy Hook happened. And
Okay.
after that shooting, have enough nerve to go ahead and sign that bill because everybody in the country right then was already talking gun control, and he did not want to kill his career.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you for correcting me on that. I don't know about that information. I appreciate you correcting me.
Yeah, well, we got to try and get it right, But after Sandy Hook, I think there were those pictures that I don't know if they were ever released to the the schoolroom with all the kids that were shot in it. It must have been a terrible thing, but it must have been a hard either way, Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is, guys. All I know is that it's not a simple solution. I don't think there's any slogan solution is going to work either.
No, I mean the security measures, and I put air quotes around measures that my son's elementary school put in are bull. I mean, they talked about how much money it costs and how they didn't have money to fix other things, and then they made us pay for badges. See, if you drop off your kid before school or after school, they charge you for childcare. By every 15 minutes or fraction thereof, you pay. I think it's like $2, and they make a ton of money off of it because they just have the kids play in the gym or play in the playground or go into the computer lab. Well, when they're playing in the playground after school, anybody could just walk into the schoolyard, shoot their way through the kids, walk in through the open gym door, and go into the school building if they wanted. I mean, most of the people are gone by then, but the kids aren't protected. And the badge system really doesn't work because they made us pay $10 for each badge. And by the way, we have the same badge system at my work, and we can make those badges at work for $5. So why does it cost the school 10? I wonder. So
it's the government.
If you get there and another parent's there and they say, I forgot my badge, could you let me in? I've never said no. So somebody could just be walking, and it's really nothing to just be standing off to the side and a parent comes walking in and you just tailgate in right behind them.
Can't you just give them the? I mean, when I was a kid in elementary school, we had after school, we had actually real activities, and there was a ribbon for, if you were good at something, like if you won at handball, and they'd give you a ribbon, you could just give the parents the same ribbons instead of that.
The school needs to make more money. They're not making enough money, so they have to make money, and they charge us for this. The school building's open. They have custodians in there after hours cleaning. Some of the staff is in there working, and the child care providers, they don't get paid a lot and they don't really have benefits and stuff like that. They're not bad. They do a good job, but this does not cost them a lot of money. And then they put in these bogus security measures, which really could be very easily bypassed and wouldn't prevent a school shooting. And then they're going to complain that they don't have money to have a cop sit there for an hour a day, 5 days a week. And
police officers. What city? Michigan. Big city police officers are an expensive resource. So if they have to pay them, and
believe me, our taxes are high enough. Look, all I'm saying, you know what? Why don't those cops start writing a few more speeding tickets and they could pay for it? But the whole thing is.
Didn't you start this conversation by saying you're glad there aren't cops in it? I'm
glad there. Yeah, but you know what? You know what though? I would
We've
deal
gone
with
full circle.
No, I would deal with that.
Our schools are funded by property taxes. Are funded by property tax, not sales tax.
Yeah, well, the property taxes are high enough, but I'm just saying that the school system is not as safe as what they did was they put on a front for everybody to make it look like they were being safer after Sandy Hook, and instead they really didn't make the school any safer. And if this new education secretary is for guns in schools, and there's something she can do at a national level to make it easier at a state level for there to be guns in schools, I'm all for it. So.
But you don't have any problem with the federal government taking the power away, any powers away from the Board of Education of your local.
Look at it like this. Look at it like this. When Obama said you have to offer the transgender bathrooms, and the school said no. he took the federal money away from the ones that said no. So, okay, if Trump goes, you're going to have to allow guns in school, and the schools say no, then he can just pull the federal money. I mean, it's a dick move, but hey, what's the difference?
Yeah, I know that. You know, it's like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but
Kind of, yeah.
And also, a state cannot overrun a federal law.
well, they do all the time in Hawaii.
Yeah, but I do think it should be up to the states how to run their schools. So I sound like a hypocrite with that, but I'm just, if there's something she can do without twisting somebody's arm, I don't really know what sort of powers the Secretary of Education has.
I don't either, but you know, you know, they're still trying to get the CIA guy in there. You know, I think the Democrats are going to be fighting every, you know, government appointee the way things are looking now, especially the Health and Human Services. But
oh, you're exactly right. They're going to try to cripple him for as long as they can. They don't want him running in there and making a bunch of changes quick.
you know, I mean, if it was just that they wanted something to replace everything so it all would be smooth, that would be one thing. But just, you know, holding up the Health and Human Services guy, you know, person, so there's nobody to run the department. I mean, that's just dumb, you know. I know that if something, I know for the military, they had to do it right away because if something goes wrong, that they didn't want if there's some attack or something, and like, you know, Maddox hadn't been approved to be in charge of the, you know, DOD, then they would take the heat big time, and Trump would be on Twitter like, you know, there'd be a Twitter revolution, you know, would nationalize Twitter or something, you know, which is almost what he's done. The world is getting crazy, nationalizing Twitter, you know. So, hey, maybe gun channels will become so important that people will nationalize. Donald Trump will have to nationalize gun channels because it becomes that powerful of a social media platform. But anyway, so if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out gun channels, check it out. It's free to join, you know. You can buy some patches and on gear websites and support, you know, the expenses for running it if you want. But you can also join for free and listen. There's a lot of really good Second Amendment people that are, you know, interested in supporting, you know, Americans' rights and freedoms, and you know, it's just a good place if you want to just learn about guns or, you know, want some advice. You know, I'm sure that everybody on gun channels has an opinion. They won't all be right opinions, but everybody will have an opinion on whatever question you ask. It's fun place. It's a fun place most of the time to hang out and learn and to do your Second Amendment activism. So check it out, gunchannels.com. Anyway, okay, so we have solved death and taxes and speeding tickets and the school system problems, and what else? Oh, the Hawaii Republican Party. I don't think anybody can solve that one like that. It's on the list to figure out. What else could we talk about before we wrap it?
How about Beretta 92S?
Oh yeah, somebody had on Gun Channels had a Beretta 92S on Classic Firearms on their. I saw that. I got an email from them, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Correct. Classic Firearms does a little thing where the customers will submit photos. If your photo gets picked as a photo of the month, they send you a link for, I don't know, like 5% off your next order or something like that. And Raphael submitted the photo of his Beretta 92S, and he included an Every Second Matters decal, or decal, as Biker Bob would say, underneath it in the picture. And
was it a decal or a patch? Was it the patch or the decal?
Well, maybe it was a patch. It must have been the patch then.
It looked like a patch to me.
Yeah, maybe it's a patch. So he included that, and you can see it plain as day. Yeah, I think that's great. I think
about my, you know, about Classic Firearms, about my Romanian Cougar factory Wasser from Classic Firearms and had it shipped out here. And the only thing bad I have to say about it is, I mean, the gun was great. It hit what I aimed at right out of the box. Made the guy with the only thing bad I have to say about it is that the hand grips really sucked. And they were all practically broken. And so when I put that on their website, they just took it down, that there was, they only allow positive comments on their website, So if you say something negative, they'll just take it down, like, oh, the wood sucked, and then at first they said they were going to replace it, and then they said, no, we aren't going to replace it. After somebody told me we'll replace it, but they realized they don't have extra grips, and they would have to call Ironwood to get replacements, and they weren't going to do that, so I had to do it. And then I wound up, refinishing the old buttstock and putting finish on the Ironwood hand grips, and it was a long project. I have a video of that that I made. It's got a few views, but it was like for 6 months, my lanai of my condo was like a dry station for AK wood, because I did like 6 or 7 coats, and you have to leave it out there, and you can't really sand down. You have to sand down each individual coat of, when you put on the mixture of RIT dye and semi-gloss, and then when you have to let it dry to it's completely bone dry before you can sand it smooth with quadruple odd stainless steel pads. So it would be out there. I'd like leave it out for a week. I'd put it in by the air conditioner, which would kind of like take out the moisture out of it. Oh, even better than just leaving it out in the sun, which would just kind of make it more like gooey and melty. But I would go in front of the air conditioner for a week, I'd leave it out for a couple of weeks, put it back in front of the air conditioner for another week, and then after a month I would so 6 or 7 coats. It takes 6 or 7 months to do in Hawaii anyway. So, but anyway, they basically, the only problem I have with Classic Firearms is that if you say something like the wood stocks really weren't that good, that came with it. But other than that, the gun is great. I love it. It just took 6 months of work to get it, the wood to get some wood, and then to get it into stick. It took 2 months actually just to get the wood, and then 6 months of, getting the finish to where I liked it. But it was worth it. I wouldn't do that again for anybody else, and I don't even want to buy another gun that I would have to work on the wood stocks, because it's just, I don't have I don't want to just monopolize my lanai for 6 months again as a dry station. I had RIT dye and newspapers and shit spread out all over it. It was just crazy. Never again. But I love my AK, so in the end, it was just I guess part of the AK experience. Working on your guns. Working on your guns can be fun, but I think I'd rather just buy a gun that had the decent stocks on it already than have to go through all that. So I don't want to get a Mosin Nagant and have to redo the wood or something like that. Just fuck it.
I've gotten 5 Mosins from them, and they've been in good shape. Was it cheaper to refinish the wood on the AK than it was just to order used furniture off of a website?
I think I was in the money. I just wanted it right, and the money was no object. I mean, I didn't I know that Ironwood did good work, but it's like weird. They don't take credit cards. I had to write them a check, and mail it, snail mail, because they couldn't even take credit cards.
Outdated.
I know. That's what I thought. At first, I didn't even order it. It's like, what do you mean you don't take credit cards? What kind of shit is that? Then I realized that there wasn't anybody else in the United States of America that could give me actually good grips. So I was stuck with, okay, give me fucking hand grips. Fuck it. Then I did after 6 months of refinishing, I installed it, and I realized the finish and then the coat of clear coat of that I sprayed on, the glossy clear coat, I had made it just a tiny bit, about a millimeter too big, and I couldn't fit the hand. So I had to hand guard its place. So I had to sand it down, and I was pissed because I needed to go buy a piece of sandpaper. What shit. It's just like,
never-ending amount of work. But that's the whole thing about an AK. It's you got to sand it to fit, and but when it's done, it's fucking awesome. But it's just a lot of work it was a lot of work to get it into like a cherry shape. So I don't think I'd ever really sell it. And I might have sold it if Hillary had won the election and prices had gone through the roof. If it was like $20,000 for an AK or something, yeah, sure, take it. But that didn't happen. We get to keep our guns, and maybe we can. I can't wait till Trump, if he can get a Supreme Court nominee through the Congress without a filibuster fight. I'm wondering how that's going to go. You think we're going to have a filibuster fight, for the Supreme Court nominee of Trump?
According to the NRA, it can happen if you're willing to pay for it.
If we pay the NRA, everything will work out right.
So I got today in my email an NRA, ILA, action, whatever, and I'm like, oh, great, what is this? So then it's talking about their 10-point agenda for freedom. And
point one, send us more money.
Yeah, kind of. It's, now the NRA PVF, whatever the hell that is running on financial fumes. I need your help to rebuild our fighting strength for the battles just around the corner. You and I both know that defeating Hillary Clinton and electing Donald Trump, we did not win the war. Instead, we earned a golden opportunity to undo the damage done to our freedom inflicted by the Obama administration.
That's all right.
And put our nation back on track.
They're right.
On course towards ironclad Constitution for freedom. And then it's talking about 1, nominate and confirm pro-Second Amendment judges, starting with the Supreme Court. 2, scrap Barack Obama's illegal anti-gun executive actions. 3, end any and all U.S. participation in the UN gun ban treaty. 4, root out and fire Barack Obama's gun-hating bureaucrats in every federal agency. 5, eliminate the so-called gun-free zones on all U.S. military bases. 6, pass national right to carry reciprocity. 7, stop harassing gun shops and put an end to Operation Choke Point. 8, stop murderous terrorists from entering our nation at the border. 9, increase federal prosecution of criminals who misuse guns and commit their crimes. And 10, protect hunting and shooting on our public lands. So it says, please now help the NRA PVF and click here. So I click here and it instantly goes to 25, 50, or 100. Please help us rebuild our war chest after last year's high costly.
I hate to admit it, but they're absolutely right. They need more money, but it's just I hate it when they're right and they say because they need more money because I know I have to come up with it. I hate it when they're right.
Don't you think though the way they do it, it's kind of a dick move. I mean, they send you this thing and they get all hyped up and you click on this and you type.
They're on our sides. We're on their side and they're on our side, so it doesn't matter who's a dick. We shouldn't even have to pay We shouldn't even have to pay money to protect our freedoms, but guess what we do? And I hate it when they send out that shit or they call me for more money and I know they're right, and it's just like, because, I got my own problems, and coming up with all the money and stuff that I need, I got bills, so it's like, just like everybody else, I hate it to get another one to it, but, when they're right, they're right.
I would like them to have some sort of full disclosure. How much does Chris Cox and Wayne LaPierre get paid every year? That's what I really want to know. So.
I don't care how much they get paid, but I just want to know if I give them money, is Trump Supreme Court nominee? Is that going to have any effect on whether Trump could get his Supreme Court nominee pick through? Because that's like that would be worth $25. I mean, I already paid $10 to Donald Trump's campaign, so in for a penny, in for a pound. I guess. I guess I don't mind giving money to this or that, but I'd rather it be more voluntary than getting an email with the scare tactic or something. It's like, oh, we don't have any money. Aren't you guys throwing a convention? They hire somebody to do that pretty much. It's like another company. I know because I get the phone calls from them sometimes. How would you like to renew for a lifetime membership? For $1,000, $500, or whatever it is, and it's like, well, thank you for doing what you're doing, but I'm kind of in a money's tight right now, call back, later, but, it's just, if I'm lucky, somebody else will call me at this exact same time and say, sorry, there's somebody on the end of the line, I have to go, but they're right, I mean, they're doing the right thing, and it's like, I hate to say it, but just shut up and pay them. Shut up and
If I
take
were
my
to go
money. Shut up. And take
If I were to go to the convention in Atlanta in April, and they had like a tip jar, walking by, and it's like, donate to the PVF, ILA, or whatever.
They're never going to get all the money they need that way.
Well, no, they're never going to get all the money they want. I'm just saying,
Nobody ever gets that much.
I would be more inclined to walk by and stuff money into something if they had a booth where they were accepting donations than by getting these junk emails. That's all.
I'd like to get, like, if they had a booth with hot girls giving out selling free kisses or something like that. By the way, there were some really cute Mexican girls working at Taco Del Mar. I picked up a taco salad after like the midday chat. And I know one of them waved at me. She was a little fatter, and the super thin chick, she seems mildly pleasant too. So, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back there maybe and check it out sometime and make a pass at one of those chicks or both of them at the same time. Anyway, it's like so. But as far as the money goes, it's like, yeah, I think we just gotta bite the bullet and pay up for all those organizations, and there's a lot of them. Gun Owners of America. But they don't charge as much as the NRA. I did see some cool NRA silver coins that on the internet somewhere that are like silver round cutouts, and with the NRA logo on them and stuff. So
yeah, that would be kind of cool to have.
Yeah, but they're a little more than, I think they're like $18 each or something, and silver is like 17 right now, so it's like $1 over spot or something. You could try and find them, or you could just go on the internet. I've seen them. If you search NRA coins or something, you'll probably find it somehow. Yeah, it'd be cool, but I mean, if you want to buy it, generally the general rule for buying silver is you want to buy it as cheap as possible. That won't be a special coin, cut out for the NRA. That'll probably be a premium. I know that Gun Owners of America charges some ridiculous amount, like $95 a coin or something, for a Gun Owners of America silver coin. But the NRA one was a lot less expensive that I saw, but most generally, like I said, you want to buy to as close to spot as you can possibly get it, and then save it for put it away until if there's a major price change, and that's generally buy it cheap and sell it steep, and that's just basic investing 101. But it's like, I don't know how long I'm going to be holding on to all my medals. It's fun collecting them.
Have you been buying any gold?
If I knew when and which way it was going, I would load the fuck up on it. But I've been buying more silver lately than gold. I mean, I have some gold, but I have a gold eagle, buffalo coin, 1 ounce sunshine mint bullion bar, a tenth. I have one of the 1/10 of an ounce eagles. Gold eagles, but I really like the Britain Bank of Britain's 2017 Year of the Rooster coin. It looks like an awesome engraving, but I haven't. That's just buying it because it's cool. It looks fucking awesome. I mean, from what I've seen on the internet, and the gold eagles are. I think I talked to Dano about that on the last chat. They're like only 92% pure because they have copper to make them a little more strong, increase the strength of the coin. The buffalo, gold buffalo, Indian buffalo, nickel coins are 99.99% pure, but that'll be a lot softer, So, but I keep all my coins in a plastic round. What the hell is that?
That is America. That is the sound of progress and a good economy.
Did a train go by your house?
Train's going by. That means the economy's good.
It was a Trump train. It was a Trump train. Oh
The
man.
gold's been up here the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it has. I've been hoping for metals to go down lately because I could buy if it went down enough, I'd just load up like crazy. But yeah, it's been going up. It's hard to figure out why. I mean, it just seems to have been slightly going up, a little bit. It hasn't been a major move, or anything. It's just been slowly trending up. So
Most of it's the changes in our dollar. Our dollar is struggling again.
well, I don't know. I've given up trying to analyze it. There's some good people that do the chart analysis, but it's a lot of it's just political events that are happening. With the war on cash, India calling in all their 500 and 1,000 rupiah notes, and Venezuela calling in their currency, and Australia may be calling in the $100 Aussie notes, bank notes, $100 bills, and who knows what country's next in the Italian banking, system in the East. It's just fucking, the world is kind of, nuts. That's why I like prepping, That's why I start. Oh, damn! I love this attack. Wait a minute, I got to share this. Do a screen share. Probably won't work. This is on the Rhino page. Let me. Trying to keep too many windows open at once. I can get the rhinos up on the Republican page. This is fucking awesome picture. All right, I'll get it. Let me just download this. Missing the Trump train. Here you go. It's not gonna let me copy this picture because it's on a rotator. Jesus. Click here to read the story. Maybe that'll help. Attack of the Rhinos. It's got 2 charging rhinos. Rated S for stupid. Okay, I got to get this picture up. All right, I'm going to try and screen share this page. It may not work, so I don't know if it'll. It's funny. Can you see that? Attack of the Rhinos?
Yep. I got
Rated
it.
S for stupid. That's just a killer picture. The Hawaii Republican Party. Yeah, I really saw that. I saw that. It's a good. I think I talked about it last week. Commander Zero was training like the Rangers, South African Rangers at a rhino reserve in a Kruger National Park, how to move as a military team and stuff, because they're fighting, organized Chinese poaching, organizations, criminal organizations, and the poachers are very well armed. So he was just training them how to move, and they're basically, there's an operation going to try to move these rhinos to guarded, reserves, game reserves, so they can't be poached because they're very endangered. They kill them for their horns. There's no medicinal value to their horns, but they kill them for their horns because idiots in China think this thing thinks it'll give them a hard on or something. So it's like, buy Viagra like everybody else. Instead of killing these rhinos. And it's so sad. They'll just shoot the mother in front of the baby rhino, and so they can get the horn. And but the Rangers are on it. I don't know if you guys watch the Outdoor Channel, but they've had Carter's War, which is wildlife animal response, and they're they've got like the Rangers are they're up against it, but they're fighting the poachers. I think they had FAL rifles, and which aren't very good in full auto, obviously, because I think the round is just too hot. What are they, 308 or something? And so they're good for one single shots, but in full auto, they aren't very good. So I think that's why Commander Zero was trying to teach them just to move like a military organization. So if the bad guys, if they ride up into a group of poachers, and he was teaching them to how to back up if you're like right into an ambush spot, first off, don't just get out of the car. First, back up the your vehicle out of the ambush zone, and then get out and move he's teaching him how to move like a military, squad. Exactly how to move. And so, because if they see the Rangers moving like a military and not just a bunch of guys with guns, like they're actually organized like a military organization, then they just will run and not try and fight. But yeah, these aren't the rhinos we want to save. The Republican Party rhinos. These are not the rhinos you want to save, but the actual rhinos you do. But they have a website if you want to check it out for the Carter's. Google it, Carter's War Wildlife Animal Response, or look at the Outdoor Channel. They have the shows on quite frequently. Just doing God's work out there. So, as are we all. All right. Anybody have anything on their channel going on, or anything they're working on that they want to talk about before we wrap this up for this week?
The big news tonight was Smeggy got on We Like Shooting, so he's going to be catching some crap for that.
Okay, I'll leave that to you guys. Is there something bad about being on that show?
No. It's just that the people were saying, oh, he's moving up the ladder, or he's leaving us behind, or he's Mr. Big Stuff now, or so. No, We Like Shooting is a great show. I like it.
Yeah, Billy Joel did a song called Big Shot. You have to be a big shot, didn't you? All right. I like Smeggy. He seems okay. I've talked to him in the lobby for quite some time. I think he was.
Oh no, he's great. He's great. I'm just talking about teasing him.
Oh well, yeah. This is the lobby. So, I mean, that's like happens in the lobby. So, anything else besides Smeggy being on We Like Shooting?
Other than I don't know how you get two people from Michigan and you're in Hawaii.
This is the internet, man. Shit happens. This is the internet. Shit happens. All I know is that if you want to keep it secret, don't type it on the internet. All right. So this has been the Hawaii Volcano Squad, which is a joke from the earlier lobby. But we were all out. I was going to talk about Chinese aircraft carriers, but we ran out of time. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching, and give us a thumbs up. God bless America. And it's great to live in a free world like this one. This free country is great that we got.